And welcome back to the Real Marc Bagwell, a wrestling docuseries. Chosen lawyer, cousin Jerry Hood, back yet again. And Jerry, the last 2 weeks we've been talking about the Conrad Thompson, Eric Bischoff interview on 83 Weeks, where they brought in Buff and they had the interview for the last 30 minutes. They spent 2.5 hours discussing the life and times of Marc Bagwell, Buff Bagwell. This was again episode 254 on 83 Weeks. I've been giving them a lot of plugs, but I gotta say, it was some of their best work ever, and they really did right by Buff. And so much stuff to analyze afterwards that we needed a whole 3 weeks to cover it. So, welcome back. We talked about the interview, we talked about Lex, and in today's chapter, I got a big surprise for you. You ready?
Bring it. Let's do it.
All right, it's time to settle this debate once and for all because they covered it extensively, and I know I have my feelings, you your feelings. Buff Bagwell, heel or babyface. Now, when I say
You heard what
this,
they you heard what they said.
I heard what they said, and I agree with them. At this stage in his career, based on coming up, going down, coming back up, and at his age, and watching him as a success story with DDP, I think at this point, indefinitely he's a babyface. I agree with that. I think that's the best angle right now. Man of the fans, inspirational, great. Let's do this, especially getting him into the Wrestling Hall of Fame. So WWE Hall of Fame, I think that's going to happen. So as of right now, I would say for the definite future, as he's rising back up, babyface all the way. We agree?
I think so. Eric had some really good points. I think with what he's done, Marcus Buff Bagwell in his career, you can't hate him. It's too hard. He's too nice of a guy. You can't hate him and what he's done for professional wrestling. Now, what Eric likes to do is let's bring him back. He's a baby face. He's a nice guy. Everybody loves him. They fall in love with him. They this, they that. They love him. They like him. The signs. Okay, then he does something that betrays them. And he's a bad guy. And they build it back up and they build it. And the story continues, blah, blah, blah. And you know the song and dance. Da 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 dee, dee da da. And he's back to a baby face again. But he can't get away from being the good guy. And like Eric said, for what he's done, and he just all of a sudden you bring him back and he's a bad guy, and they're like, wait a minute, we remember him being good and he loved everybody. He signed all the autographs and he was a good guy. And so why now all of a sudden is he a bad guy? So no, I'm with you by far, 99.9% for sure, babyface.
Considering they brought up the fact of what he's doing right now, as far they showed clips of him being in the ring, he's taking bumps again. He was teaching his cousin a little bit about what ring work looks like. So he's actually helping other people as far as their education into wrestling and taking bumps himself. He's figuring out what his knee's going to allow him to do. When he gets that knee looked after once and for all, the plan is for him to go back in the ring. Now, not being a full-time wrestler or anything like that, but coming in maybe tag team action, I think is a good thing. Coming in a surprise entrant as the Royal Rumble and then throwing him over the ring in 2 seconds or keeping him on for a little bit, but protected. It's more the appearance that not for a long term and a full-time professional wrestler, but just the fact even being able to take one bump, even being in the ring for 5 minutes, folks, considering where he was at, that in itself is a giant victory. That's like playing in the Super Bowl for him. So Mark feels comfortable with it. I encourage him the whole way. I think it's going to be very, very cool. But cheering him on right now, I think it's got to be as a baby face. But also, Mark brings up a good point. This show is called The Real Marc Bagwell, a wrestling docuseries, and about who the real Marc Bagwell is. And I trace it back again to the story of Marc Bagwell, where I, as a fan, back in the day, I'm watching Marcus Alexander Bagwell, and I figured this is who he is. Marcus Alexander Bagwell, this generic baby face, high flyer, decent physique. And I'm like, whatever. All of a sudden he becomes Buff Bagwell and you get the goatee and he gets jacked and he's this heel. And I love it. I love it. But I'm like, wow, he's playing this great character where the truth of the matter is the Marcus Alexander Bagwell babyface was the character he was playing. Buff Bagwell, he was playing himself. So Buff Bagwell is never going to disappear. It's not going to happen. As long as he's on this green earth and God willing is here to 120, he is Buff Bagwell. He's Marc Bagwell, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, but he is Buff Bagwell. He is embracing that. And to me, when I reflect back on Life and Times, I'm always going to see that heel, the one that I wanted to cheer for. I loved his shenanigans. And most people, when they think fondly on his career, I think we love that heel.
Yeah, for sure. He did a great job with that. I had the pleasure of talking to the referee that Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell hired because Nick Patrick, who was ahead of all the referees, said they're not going to referee any of their matches because Buff and Scotty were beating all the referees up, but they weren't letting them win. So they just said, I talked to him, Mark Johnson, and who's been a lifelong friend of ours. And basically, them being the heels, him and Scotty, and then Mark in there with them as a bad guy referee, that was really fun. But as the Babyface, here we go. And then all of a sudden we go down into the heel, and then they come out of that, and we're a Babyface again. So he just, but I did love that. The NWO black and white, and then moving over to the Wolf Pack, NWO red. And it was fun, him being that heel for a while. And I think even though people knew he was a heel, it was almost like they loved it too. It didn't matter. We don't care what you are and who you are. We love you no matter what. And Marcus loved that role. So period.
This
And
was
Scotty's the other way around. He wants you to hate him and he hates you. So that's that's good.
the NWO. You think about it, it was in the golden time when people think why NWO, why Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan. People were sick of baby faces. They were sick of cheering for the goody goody two shoes, and they wanted the anti-hero. And when you have like this invasion and NWO took over WCW and NWO's got its own pay-per-view, new world order. And you got Hollywood Hogan turned on everybody. You hated him, but you loved him. And it was a time when you were cheering for heels, and it was a heel, but it was still one that you cheered for. And that was the thing. It was cool to be the anti-establishment. And that's how we're always going to remember him. But right now, I think that it's going to go babyface, certainly. And, I'm getting back fond memories right now, Jerry Hood, because I remember when I first brought Marc Bagwell on any show, before there was such a thing as the Real Marc Bagwell series, there was my original podcast, The Chosen
I
Life.
remember.
The
I
Chosen Life, which
remember.
is going strong. We're going really well. We're in season 2 number right now. And Marcus Bagwell was guest number 5 ever on The Chosen Life. And at the time, there was no hint of anything of what's going to be transpiring. And you can go back and watch it. February 2022. In episode 5, I told him, if I'm you, I'm hooking up with DDP. And guess what? DDP has the recipe. And you hook up with DDP and you follow his way. And you guys work together. The sky's the limit. And I was right. I told him back then that, WWE Hall of Fame, you deserve it. You are a lifer. What you contributed to this industry and how much of an effect you've had, people need to start considering you. Guess what? Eric Bischoff and Conrad Thompson talked about it on 83 Weeks and said, if there's one guy success story who's been underappreciated and really needs to get consideration for the Hall of Fame, it's Buff Bagwell. So guess what, Jerry Hood? We're not smoking it up and not, thinking straight. When Conrad and Eric are saying these are wrestling professionals, we're onto something here. So manifesting good things for Buff Bagwell is what we do here on The Real Marc Bagwell. And where I'm seeing, they hinted upon is where he's going right now. There's the indie wrestling plus motivational speaking. You got Mark Merrill that's out there telling his story. And Buff recently joined them for a recent talk. And there wasn't a dry eye in the room when you hear Mark Merrill's story. And this makes a lot of sense to me. Mark's interested in doing this stuff. Can you see this, Jerry Hood, as far as going out to schools, talking to companies and giving motivational speeches, talking about his story and telling others as far as right and wrong and way to live life? I can sure see it.
I see it for sure. I think it'll work really well for not only just Marcus doing it, he enjoys the motivational speeches. He loves reaching out. He loves helping. He loves telling his story, and you'll see his story will make some tears pour out as well. And once he does that, whether it be for the companies or the schools, he's really good with the schools. I don't know about companies and organizations. Very possibly he might go down that avenue, but as far as the schools, the avenues he took when he was in school and the avenues he wants them to take now, the avenues he wants them to take after they graduate and go to college. I mean, a high school diploma today in the USA, you used to, it meant something. You had to graduate. You wasn't getting a job. No, you wasn't getting a job, to make any money of any magnitude. But now it's 4 years of college. And of course, he wants to steer them in the right direction and get these people, our new generation that's going to run, the North American continent, in the next 20 years, So, yeah, motivational would be good. I felt like, have you ever heard one of his motivational speeches or anything? Or
I've heard clips of them. Yes, he's given them in
okay,
little segments, and they're
sure,
very powerful. It's it's
yeah,
it's mind blowing when Marc Bagwell gives an inspirational message. Like you just get
yeah,
captivated,
it's good. It's
and
unreal. It's believable. It's true. It's genuine. Um, by far, they're phenomenal.
I gotta ask you, Jerry Hood. As we sum up today's episode, I had thought about you this morning as I'm having breakfast, and I'm thinking in my mind. So I've known Buff Bagwell now for well over a year. And I got to say, in this 1 year, man, what a train ride it's been. I have seen him from where he was at, where he was going, the game plan, things shifting. It's unbelievable. Like, every time I talk to him, he says himself, you can't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable what this man goes through. I've seen it for over a year. You've seen it for a lifetime. How does he do it? How does he pick himself up, dust himself off, get stronger mentally, and keep at it? What is his secret?
Determination. I've told you that before. But it's you can't make this stuff up. And Big Steve added something to it. Marcus uses it as well as it only happens to me. And it's a mindset. I mean, not only bad luck, here and there. Sometimes I feel it's a mindset. His oldest brother, Steve said, "Only happens to me. Bad luck here, bad luck there, bad luck this." But I look at it differently. I'm full force, positive, this, that. Marcus's car catch on fire in the garage, and I'll say, "It's okay, don't worry about it. We'll buy a new Mercedes. Don't worry about it. We'll buy a new Corvette. Don't worry." And he's like, "Oh my God, the world ends." It's that, da da da. It only happens to me. Why does it? It happens to everyone. It's how you choose to handle it from there. It's what happens. But you can't make it up. But being back to the original, being there for the past, let's say 50 years is about all I can remember. Imagine your train ride now, okay? Your train ride. Now, imagine the 50-year train ride. I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've had it all. And it was a blast. And I wouldn't trade it for any of our properties, any of our Lear jets. And there's two. And I wouldn't trade it for $50 million. And it was such a fun time, from Judy Bagwell to Steve Bagwell Sr. to our cousins, Marc's brothers. We all just had that, that we all meshed, and it was fun. There were times that we didn't think we were ever going to come out alive, from car wrecks to jumping off houses into swimming pools, swimming across lakes with alligators in it, uh, flipping trucks over. That's mostly Scott Steiner, but we're there with him when we do it. Playing brake lights, rolling houses, shooting guns in the air. You name it, we've done it. And like I said, we had it all. Favorite cliche is we've had everything from a Mickey Mouse doll to a Lamborghini, and we wouldn't trade it for $10 million. And what a fun ride. I'm thankful. I'm very thankful to be a part of it now and be a part of it then. Now I've sort of got my own deal going, but that doesn't mean that just because of what we bring in financially, we don't separate or not call or we don't talk. Mark and I still to this day, like I say, he's 53 years old now, and we've never had an argument, never had a fight, and it's just the way it is. And I'm very thankful, for what we have.
Like I say, I'm very grateful, first of all, having met Mark originally and having him on the Chosen Life podcast and eventually developing. I had the brainstorm for the Real Marc Bagwell series, and I pitched to him and saying this would be, where you need to be at in life. And this is, fans need to hear the real truth and the real life stories and not just what they think they hear through the media. And through that, you and I became friends. We became friends, you and I, through the Chosen Life, actually, where Mark was originally there before there was even the Real Marc Bagwell, and we
Sure.
developed a brotherhood. And you know what? It's really cool, folks, how people that were never part of your life one day become an integral part of it the next day. And, having a lifelong brotherhood now with Jerry Hood, being able to share these kind of stories with wrestling and life and inspiring others. That's what the Real Marc Bagwell is all about. So fans love you, Jerry Hood. You're one of the greatest storytellers I've ever met, to be honest. And social media loves you, and we find those clips of you, and people love to share their thoughts, good and bad, but you invoke reactions. So we're going to keep at it, and we'll see everybody back next week on The Real Marc Bagwell, a wrestling docuseries.
Peace out.